Well, even his worst critics would not question two things about him: his competence as a lawyer and his personal integrity, which is why there is a lot of focus right now on why Gopal Subramanium, one of India's top lawyers whose name was in the running for being a Supreme Court judge, is taking on the Narendra Modi-led NDA government, which has sent back to the collegium for reconsideration his name as a Supreme Court judge. Gopal Subramaniam, this is becoming very controversial. You have responded to it by withdrawing your name from the post of a Supreme Court judge for consideration for that. Why are you doing so, Mr. Subramaniam?
There are three reasons, Arnab. The first is that when you want to enter a constitutional office, that too on invitation, you need to have a certain amount of trust and shared happiness in the appointment. I never anticipated that there would be objection to my appointment, but I was absolutely wrong. So the first point is a judge can't begin his career with a trust deficit from one of the important litigants before him, which is the government itself. The second is that there are certain processes which have to be adopted even when you have reservations about individuals. And I don't think that process was correctly followed in my case. And I was actually the victim of some stories which were planted around in different parts of the media. I had no chance to defend myself, and I do not wish that my character be questioned by an executive government, and that too through my clients, namely the Intelligence Bureau, the CBI,
yes,
the Cabinet Secretariat, who have actually sought my advice over 30 years.
So are you saying that these agencies are being used against you? And Mr. Subramaniam, I want to put a caveat by saying that if I ask you these questions, it's only so that I get the answers from you. So let's be very specific, Mr. Subramaniam. The fact remains that the CBI gave a negative report about you, ostensibly from what we've heard, to the Law Ministry, and the government therefore has to take that view into consideration. Now, there is a negative report about you. The government says we can't ignore it. How can you blame the government, Mr. Subramaniam, when you say that the Modi government is apprehensive, you won't toe their line? The government says it's not about whether Mr. Subramaniam toes our line. It's about the fact that there is a CBI negative report about him.
It's so interesting, Arnab, that on the 15th of May, and this is disclosed to me by none other than the Chief Justice of India, that there was a complete integrity check and there was a clear IB report. Now, immediately after a new government comes in, you find that the CBI is given a mandate to do some, what you called, dirt digging, and I think that's entirely unacceptable. But I'm prepared to deal with each allegation contained in the report, because it is so brazenly false that it is impossible for any government which has even an ounce of conscience to actually say that this needs to be sent back for reconsideration.
Are you saying the Modi government fixed the CBI? Are you saying the Modi government fixed the CBI into giving a negative report about you? Or are you suggesting that the Modi government, was the beneficiary of the CBI becoming flexible on its own? Because reports and assessments of agencies don't change overnight, Mr. Subramaniam. You're saying it changed overnight in your case. Who got it changed?
there is a thin dividing line between the two situations which you have described, Arnab. All that I can say is, I find it impossible to believe that matters which have actually been dealt with, described, trashed, done in, are being brought up today in the year 2014. Mind you, these are incidents in relation to the year 2010. Let me take up one by one.
Can I lead you on to those,
First,
with your permission? With your permission, Mr. Subramaniam, let me lead you on to those issues. You see, first, Mr. Subramaniam, you have denied having met any lawyer involved in the 2G case during your tenure as Solicitor General of India. My question to you is, and just hear me out, Mr. Subramaniam, isn't it a case of your word against the CBI's? The CBI, which was fighting the case against Raja, claims that two of its senior officials saw you with Raja's lawyers. So you are speaking of the judiciary being compromised now. Why should not one take an adverse note of you having reportedly interacted with the counsel for a person that the government's own investigating agency was trying to prosecute?
Let's now be very clear about this, Arnab. The first is that when the matter was being conducted in the Delhi High Court, I was the lawyer for all the departments, including the CBI. Now, when the matter came up to the Supreme Court, I was never told either by the then Prime Minister or by anyone in government that Mr. Raja, who was the minister, was under either suspicion or investigation. On the contrary, what is important to bear in mind is that I met the CBI officers individually. And the words which I used with the three officers, one of them is no longer alive. That is this minister a bandicoot? Because I don't want to take a stance which is inconsistent with facts. And the three officers only, and this was a closed door conference, in my official bungalow, they told me that, sir, till now, we have not come across any material. But you must also know this, Arnab, that I am the lawyer who advised the Prime Minister of India that the case against Mr. Raja in the matter of investigation and prosecution cannot be closed. And that was the advice given by me to the Prime Minister, which he accepted.
No, I understand that, Mr. Subramaniam. We are actually aware of those facts, that you actually took a contrary position to that of the government in the 2G case. And to some extent, Mr. Subramaniam, we are also aware that you were the victim of having taken such a position. But then tell me, Mr. Subramaniam, if that is to be the case, what is this? Is this fiction? We have a news report which says when the two CBI officers who went for the meeting, a special director and a deputy inspector general, became aware of the presence of Raja's lawyers in the office, they returned and complained to CBI director Ashwini Kumar. So the argument being put here is that the argument is that you were colluding with Raja, and I think you need to really set the record straight on that one.
Well, the first thing is, I have met Mr. Raja only once in my life. That too, he came as a minister, accompanied by the Secretary to the Department of Telecommunications, Mr. Chandrasekhar, in connection with the settlement of a pleading. At that time, I had absolutely no information from anybody about this man being under a scanner. And actually, I was so tight-lipped, I still remember in that meeting, I said that this is a matter which needs to be considered by the government, after which I will have a look when a pleading is drawn up. After which I must tell you that there is no person, Mr. Raja, in fact, I think saw me for the first time in his life. Only for exactly 21 minutes.
Mr. Subramaniam, I repeat again, you said it a while back that on the 15th of May, the day before the general election results were to be announced, in your words, the Chief Justice of India told you that the integrity check and the IB report, the Intelligence Bureau report, had been cleared. I'm asking you that because that's a significant input from you. You stand by that. When did he tell you that? Did he say this to you verbally? Did he communicate it informally? Because if he did do that, then the whole matter becomes very, confusing. If the Chief Justice of India tells you something and that position changes
he did say so. Yes. He did say so. And I must tell you, at all points of time, Arnab, that I offer to the Chief Justice of India, I am more than willing to walk out.
Why did you say that? What were you apprehensive about?
No, I'm not apprehensive about anything. But I just wanted the Chief Justice of India to be completely comfortable with what was going on. And he said that he was completely behind me.
So you told the Chief Justice of India about what was going on. What was going on? Elaborate, please. What was going on?
What was going on at that time was first an Economic Times news report on the 11th of June 2014 that simply said that government had a reservation. Then I come to the next day, I saw some newspaper reports which again spoke about this 2G. And incidentally, this very newspaper article was trashed by Mr. Andhyavujina and me in the open court before the 2G bench which heard the case, and the reporter was chastised. And that is a part of the CBI case diaries. And I would really be very happy to know if somebody can explain why is it that the truth is not being spoken at this moment.
There are all these stories.
Secondly,
it's a very, you see, the importance of this, and I want to put this for all our viewers watching tonight, this interview, Mr. Subramaniam. The significance of this interview is that here is a man, Gopal Subramaniam, indisputably one of India's best known and qualified lawyers, in the race, and it was a given that he would rise to the bench of the Supreme Court along with other leading lights of the legal fraternity. Now, his name goes back for reconsideration, and there are all kinds of now questions being raised on whether he's competent. There's an attempt to link him to 2G, someone to Neera Radia, someone says to, his whole application of logic. He now comes out and says, I'm being put in the cold because I don't think the Modi government thinks I'm going to toe their line. My second question to you, Mr. Subramaniam. You have been accused, according to a law ministry official, who says to the Intelligence Bureau, who says that the Intelligence Bureau has in its report given instances where you, Mr. Subramaniam, rely on your spiritual instincts rather than your legal or rational logic while applying your mind. And especially in the case of the Sri Padmanabha Swami temple, where you did an incredible job and you exposed the pilferage of gold from the temple vaults and submitted a 575-page report. You apparently said there that you cannot take credit for discovering any of the misdeeds because it was divinely ordained. And I quote the report, your report is saying it was his morning ritual of shutting his mind and seeking guidance, which is spiritual guidance, which resulted in discoveries in this direction. So the accusation being put here is that a person who depends on his spiritual instincts to decide on cases cannot be a Supreme Court lawyer. I want your response to that, Mr. Subramaniam.
I'm actually very honored that the Intelligence Bureau reads the Padmanabha Swami Temple report. I'm extremely flattered. But I must now let you know three things. One, the first is that the Padmanabha Swami Temple is a temple which follows certain traditions and shastras. I actually was appointed as an amicus curiae by the Supreme Court. Now, naturally, when I went to the temple, I was not getting any assistance in discovering what were actually the hidden gold or the unaccounted silver or the unaccounted treasures. Now, naturally, when you enter a temple, you have to follow a certain code of conduct. You have to wear a dress which is becoming in the temple. And naturally, since I am a theist, I went and actually prayed for guidance in front of the deity. And I suppose if I were to fold my hands and were to pray in any temple, I'm not taking leave of my rationality, nor am I taking my ability to evaluate evidence. If every piece of silver and gold which I actually found, and I am not only physically touching the gold and the silver, but I have an assortment of 8,000 photographs. In fact, in respect of each one of these discoveries, I find that to suggest that the person is more spiritual than rational is somewhat very highly mystifying. But I must tell you that the report also contains excerpts from scriptures which I've had an opportunity to study over a period of time. And if writing a report on the Padmanabha Swami Temple as an amicus curiae, which is before the Supreme Court of India for the purpose of examination, I think the attempt to actually scrounge for something to be said against my candidature is quite evident. I was actually even more puzzled to know that the Intelligence Bureau wanted to say that in the Parliament attack case, I behaved funnily by going to the Parliament House building. Now, actually, this is again so ludicrous. I went in the morning wearing a dhoti and carrying a few flowers to pay homage to the martyrs who have given up their lives for the sake of protecting the country. And after I finished arguing the case, I again went back to the same spot and put a few flowers to pay my homage.
I just put it very simply. The argument being made, Mr. Subramaniam, is that you are too religious and religious up to the point where, according to people in the Intelligence Bureau, they say that, you know, your religious fervor may interfere with your rational thinking, and they say that he conducted a puja inside the Padmanabha Swami temple. Now, you went there as an amicus curiae. Why would you do that?
I need to answer that. You see, I need to answer that. You see, the first thing is that in the Padmanabha Swami temple, in the main building or the precincts, when you open a precinct, there is a tradition of lighting a lamp and offering a few stotras, that is shlokas, for the purpose of actually taking out the material from that room. You will be shocked to know, Arnab, that in the Padmanabha Swami temple, I did not even find one priest to conduct this basic ritual. As a result of which, I did not also want to violate the traditions which are to be observed when you open a room in the precincts of the temple, and actually conducted the puja which has been upheld by the Tattri of the temple.